Welcome back to DPReview TV viewers, it is Chris Nichols here. Recently we did a video on our best lens choices for Sony E-mount, and it's doing great, but we thought, well hey, not everybody uses a Sony camera. We're gonna do today our favorite lenses for Fujifilm X-Mount. So let's kick things off with my favorite prime lens in a wide angle range. Now normally I would go with a 24mm full frame equivalent. Now that means either the excellent Fujifilm 16mm 1.4 or Sigma 16mm 1.4 would deliver that. And I think for most stuff like travel, landscape photography, even a little bit of night and astrophotography, those are great choices. But if I was gonna pick my favorite, it would actually be the 18mm 1.4 because for me, Fujifilm cameras are more like a street camera and I prefer that almost 28mm focal length full frame equivalent for street photography. I get that excellent fast linear motor, which is great when you're on the street and you need those quick shots. I still get a 1.4 aperture, which is awesome for nighttime shoots, and overall just a great lens on a Fujifilm camera. So favorite prime lens in a normal focal range. At first I was thinking, oh, well, I have the 35mm f2 XF lens, great. There's also the XC, which gives you an even more affordable budget option, but maintains the optical clarity. And they're sharp, clean looking lenses, but really for a normal lens, I like character. And the Fujifilm 35mm 1.4 was famous for that. So my favorite pick is actually the new 33mm 1.4, optical improvement over that old 35mm, but it still maintains that beautiful character. Let's talk about portrait primes next. And you know, primes are really popular for portraiture because you usually get that wide aperture and that very shallow depth of field when you want it. And I feel like 56mm lenses have been carrying Fujifilm's portrait lineup for a long time. You got so many choices. Sigma, Tokina, two excellent 56mm from Fujifilm. They're all bright, they're all fast, they've got nice character. But if you haven't tried it yet, I would actually give the 90mm f2 a shot. First off, it's sharp, center to corner. Not a big deal for portrait, but it really does add versatility when you want to do other things. But as far as portraiture goes, it's a fast linear motor, great to focus right on the eyes. It gives you a similar shallow depth of field as a 56mm 1.4, but it has the versatility that you could do awesome head and shoulders portraits as well as get beautiful tight compression by getting back and shooting full body portraits. It's just an awesome lens to try out, and if you haven't, rent it or buy it now. Now macro lenses, Fujifilm have some interesting options. I mean, you've got the 30mm, which can almost double as a normal lens and does give you 1:1 macro, but doesn't give you a lot of working distance away from your subject. You've got the 60mm, I mean, that's a classic standby, but it's only giving you half life-size reproduction. Then you got the 80mm, nothing bad to say about it other than it's pricey. You get 1:1 macro, it's a traditional macro range, and it's very functional as a professional lens, but just a little bit more expensive. Honestly, if you're doing a lot of macro, you don't normally need autofocus, I would take a good look at the Laowa 100mm 2x macro. This is actually giving you 2:1 life-size macro reproduction. It's very sharp, and honestly for macro, I prefer to manually focus anyways. Okay, so maybe primes aren't your thing. Let's talk about a good general purpose zoom lens. Now Fujifilm have the excellent 18-55, 2.8-4. It does have the variable aperture, but it still holds up optically. Now if you've got the funds for it, you can go with the Fujifilm 16-55 f2.8 all the way through. It does give you that 24mm full frame equivalent, which is great to have on a standard zoom. But honestly, I would still go for the Sigma 18-50 f2.8. It's bright, it's compact, it's so affordable. You give up a little bit of that wide angle, but honestly, it makes so much sense and it's optically just mwah. Now our next category, well, turns out if you don't have a channel with over 400,000 subscribers, you by law have to leave a category out for no good reason. So we're leaving out Fujifilm fisheyes. I'm sorry, I know you're mad, you're missing out, but there's an easy way to rectify that. All you have to do is subscribe and click the notification bell if you haven't already, and then in future, we don't have to eliminate random categories. Okay, so let's talk about now a general purpose telephoto zoom. I mean, this is such a versatile lens that pretty much every photographer needs to have. And actually you don't have many options. We're really looking at the Fujifilm 50-140 f2.8. It's weather sealed, linear motor, sharp lens, perfectly sensible, practical, and boring. You know what, Jordan, scratch zoom out. We're going with a prime. My favorite telephoto lens is the 200mm f2. We called this the Great White Sharp. It is beautiful. It's so cool to use. Super shallow depth of field, sharp as hell. Yes, it's bulky. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's not practical in any way, shape, or form. But the few of us that have used it understand what I'm talking about. It is incredible. Our last category, Supertelephoto zoom lenses. Now Fujifilm make the 70-300 and the 100-400 and they're fine. We just never really been in love with them. And although there's a lot of third-party support, now starting to make lenses for X-Mount. As of the release of this video, we still don't have any of those excellent full-frame super teles from Sigma and Tamron. Those would be really nice to see adapted. I'm sure it'll happen soon, but there is an answer. It's the Fujifilm 150-600. Yes, it's a 5.6 to f8. It is slow, and I did find in some situations I had to crank the ISO a little bit, but it's incredibly sharp. When I did get to use it, I was very happy with the image quality I got out of it. And we should also keep in mind that although it's an expensive lens, it's perfectly in line for the focal range that we have here. The 150-600 is made specifically for APS-C sensors, so we're getting that 900mm equivalent focal range, and it's actually more compact and light than what you'd see in a full-frame lens being adapted over. So this is a clear winner if you need that wildlife and sports lens. Well, that's it. We've now covered Sony E-Mount, Fujifilm X-Mount. Let us know in the comments below what lens mount you'd like to see us cover next, and let us know what your favorite Fujifilm lenses are. What are your picks? Keep in mind as well that most of the stuff we've talked about today we've done full reviews on, so you should check those videos out, get a lot more information. Thanks so much for joining us. See you soon for another episode of DPReview TV.